to build a sled. Not a regular sled, but a saw sled. A saw sled is a wonderful accessory to have with a table saw. So, a little while ago, I built this saw sled for my old table saw here. I also have a new table saw, and I'd also like to build a saw sled for it as well. I'm going to put that together on camera so you can see how to put them together, because it is a quick, simple little project. I've seen a few internet videos that make it seem a lot more complicated than it has to be. That's why I thought I'd make a nice, easy build to encourage more people to do it. Now, why would you even want a saw sled? Well, for example, so supposing you have a little piece of wood like this here, and you want to cut that on a nice square miter, and then cut that little notch out of the middle of it. If you use this little gadget here, this angle finder that comes with the table saw, you can see how holding a piece of wood on there to cut that notch, or to cut it at an angle, it's a little bit wobbly, and also your fingers are running awfully close to that blade. Especially when you're cutting that notch, there's only like a little inch there that's holding this piece of wood perpendicular to the blade. Contrast that with using the table saw sled. I just put it on like this. It has a piece of wood that locks right in that groove in the face of the table saw. And now, if I want to cut a notch, I can put it in here. And notice how the wood is being well supported in a vertical orientation, and it's also being supported on both sides of the saw blade. So when I go to make this cut, my fingers are well back, and also the piece of wood is being held nice and securely. Same thing for cutting a miter. This piece of wood is going all the way over to the end of the piece of board and holds it nice and secure, and I can get a nice straight cut there. Another nice thing about this table saw sled is I have this wooden block here that goes in a hole. So when that's there, this sled will only go this far forward. So you can see that the rest of the blade is inside this piece of 3x3 here. So it's away from my fingers and nice and safe, but the top of the blade is here so I can make a complete cut. So a table saw sled, as I mentioned before, is quite a simple little project. All it is a flat piece of wood with a narrow piece of wood glued on here. This narrow piece of wood is meant to glide in this track here. And also you have a plate here and a plate here. This plate doesn't really do anything except hold these two pieces of wood together. This one here is what holds the piece of work that you're cutting perpendicular to the saw blade. So to make my new saw blade, my new table saw sled, I have some wood assembled here. I have a nice square of scrap wood here, and I'll just use this tri-square here, or this angle square here, to make sure that the corners are all nice and square. And I put together a piece of wood like this for the face plate, and also another one for the far end. So we'll just take a few minutes and put this together. The first thing I need is a long, thin piece of wood like this to make into the glider. So this is my new table saw over here, and this is the one that I'm making the table saw sled for. So the first thing is to cut this the same width as this glider here. And you can see I've already done that. So the next step is to give this another cut to cut it to be the right depth for that groove there. So you get the table saw fence for my old table saw and put it on here. Take this out of the way just because I don't need it anymore. Now, I've seen on some of the other internet videos for making a table saw sled, they make this cutting this piece of wood very complicated, but I have this thing here that is already designed to fit in that slot, so I just make a piece of wood that's the same size. So I just make my table saw fence. I bring it over here until it's the same thickness as this piece of metal here, and I put a little bit tight because I actually want this to be a little bit thinner than this, because I don't want this resting on the bottom. I just want it flush. So I take this here and I'll just cut this off. And so I set the table saw fence, and now I'll just cut this piece of wood to be the right depth to match the table saw. Cut to the same approximate dimensions as this piece of metal here. This piece of metal is designed to go with this slider, and so is this thing here. I cut it so that it's a little bit less deep, so if I run my finger over that I can feel a little bit of a depression. So we want to glue this onto, so all we do is put that right in the slot where we want it to go. But before I do, I'm going to put a little bit of sawdust in here so that that groove is filled up with sawdust. The idea is to have it evenly an even amount of sawdust so that the whole piece of wood is being elevated the same amount. So now when I put that in, it's going to be well above the overall fence. Okay, so we have this piece of wood, and you can see it's up a little bit higher than the table saw face now. So now I'm going to put lots of glue on it from this glue stick, and get a little piece of wood here, and just spread it out so it's nice and even. And then the next thing is I take this nice piece of wood here and set it right on top, like so that it's sitting nice and flat. And we want this to be nice and square to the saw table, but it's actually not all that important that it's exactly square, but you know, it might as well be as square as possible. So I'll just set it on here like so, and then I get a big heavy object like this 4-liter jug of chemicals that's actually been filled up with rocks. And put it on top like that. And I can also look around and find a few other heavy objects and put it on top as well. That makes lots of weight, and that closes the gap between the strip of wood and this big plate of wood that goes on top. A nice chance to dry, so I'll take these weights off again. And we can pick this up. And you can see that strip of wood is nicely glued onto the bottom. I did take a minute and cut the ends off there. You can see that that's nice and glued on there. And when we put this on the table saw, move a bit of junk out of the way here. When we put this back on the table saw, you can see that it slides back and forth. The next thing to do is to attach a little block of wood on the bottom, and actually I've already done that. And the purpose of this block of wood is to keep this from going too far forward. You might remember to go. You can see I turned the saw blade on already, and I cut a slot in the middle. So the next thing to do is to put the table saw, to put the sled face on. So first of all, I have a nice piece of wood here. By the way, I'm just making this all out of scraps of wood, so this certainly doesn't have to be an expensive or a complicated project. But I already have a couple of pieces of wood pre-cut here. So for a start, I have to fasten this onto this. Then I have a couple blocks of wood, and I already have them pre-drilled with nail holes, and 2 blocks of wood that go like that, and another one that goes like that. The reason I have all that wood there is so that when this thing is all the way forward, the saw blade is always inside these blocks of wood, so I don't have to worry about cutting my fingers. So you can see our saw sled is taking shape now. So the next thing is to fasten this on here, and then fasten these 2 blocks of wood on here. I'll just do that with nails and screws and glue. And also this piece here, I already cut it to a nice shape. It's going to go on the end of the saw sled here, and its purpose is just to hold these 2 pieces of wood nice and firmly. And by the time that's all fastened on, the saw sled will be almost... I'll show you one little thing. On this saw sled, I have 2 tracks on the bottom. The other saw sled that I made for my old table saw, I just had 1. I think if I'm making any more, I'd probably just use one runner, because I think it runs more smoothly and easily. You might notice one of these runners, I left it a little inch longer. That's so that when you put it on the saw, it's nice and easy to line up, because you can put that one runner in a slot, and then you know the other one's going to be in the right position as well. I also just remind you about this stopper here that stops it at the end of its slide. And one other thing I want to show you with this saw sled is I left a little slot here. That way I can put this big C-clamp in here like so, and I can tighten it up if I want to hold a piece of work in there nice and tightly and not have it move around. Also, you'll notice that this edge here makes a good place to put a C-clamp on as well, only I'd use a smaller C-clamp, like one of these, and I can put it on like so, and use that to hold a piece of work in there as well. So that's all it's handy. Another nice little thing I made for my saw sled this right angle thing here. I could put it in like so, and put a C-clamp on there, and it makes a little fence there. That's really handy if you're trying to cut something that is either small or something that you want to keep in a nice vertical orientation while you're sawing. I find this kind of fence works better than the fence that comes with the saw. The next thing we have to do is cut a little slot in here, so I'm going to do that now. Before I do that, I'll plug the saw in, and I'll put on eye defenders and ear defenders. And turn the saw on. Now the saw sled is ready to use. I saw a clever little test that you could do with a saw sled on another video. I just borrowed it for this one here. You take a little piece of wood like this, and you cut all four corners one after another. And that's a way to test whether you're getting a right angle or not, because each time you take the cut, you're making a cumulative error, and if you're not getting 90 degrees, the error will get worse and worse each time you cycle. This is off the step. Goggles and stuff back on. We'll delete some of these parts here where nothing much is happening. So I cut all four corners now, and it seems like all four corners are nice and square. So that makes me feel like we're getting nice square cuts. If I may say so, if I do the same thing with the angle finder that comes with the table saw, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't get as nice and even and straight cuts as we did there. Okay, well, thanks for watching.